Marco City MP Greg Moss expressed anger over party politics. Prime Minister Perry Christie suggested that the Free National Movement has ulterior motives with its ongoing protests about the Bank of the Bahamas. And BEC Chairman Leslie Miller denied contract claims. We've got those stories and a whole lot more. I'm your host, Krishna Virgil, and this is the Tribune's Top 5. Undemocratic and silly was how Marco City MP Greg Moss described the political fallout surrounding his colleague, Fort Charlotte MP, Dr. Andre Rollins. Marco City MP Greg Moss on Sunday expressed anger over the fallout Fort Charlotte MP Dr. Andre Rollins has faced due to his criticism of Prime Minister Perry Christie. Mr. Moss further told the Tribune that he intends to run in the next general election regardless of whether the Progressive Liberal Party gives him a nomination. He said the suspension threat Dr. Rollins faces is indicative of widespread misconceptions over the distribution of power in a democracy. Pointing to voter trends, Mr. Moss said it was also evident that persons were grossly dissatisfied with the state of this country's democracy, which he likened to a constitutional dictatorship. He said, quote, "When it comes to Dr. Rollins, my point is this, that we need to grow our democratic muscles. The idea that you may offend an individual or you may comment upon an individual adversely, and by doing so you may offend them and in some way thereby offend the party and in some way thereby endanger your position as a member of parliament, has embedded in this concept that the person is the party, which is not true." He added, quote, "To offend the prime minister is not to offend the party, because the prime minister is not the party," end quote. The PLP's disciplinary committee was activated last year to decide the fate of Dr. Rollins. They recommended that the former gaming board chairman be suspended from the party for no less than 6 months. However, the final decision rests with the PLP's Leadership Council, headed by Prime Minister Perry Christie. Attorneys representing Bahamas Union of Teachers President Belinda Wilson and Treasurer Lorraine Knowles delivered an ultimatum to the BUT's Executive Council on Tuesday to either rescind the suspension of the pair by 5 p.m. or face legal action. In a letter seen by the Tribune that was sent to BUT Secretary General John Musgrove, it was alleged that not only were Mrs. Wilson and Mrs. Knowles illegally suspended from the union on December 18, 2014, but the Executive Committee prejudiced the appeals process against the pair as well. The threat of legal action came as the Executive Committee granted an extension to an appeals committee appointed more than a week ago to either uphold or overturn the suspensions. Mrs. Wilson was suspended for 6 months and Ms. Knowles was suspended for 3 months. The 3-member appeals committee was appointed on January 8th and was expected to give a verdict no later than midnight on Sunday. When contacted, acting BUT President Zane Lightbourne declined to discuss the constitutionality of the extension as union officials sought to minimize public statements they make about the process. Prime Minister Perry Christie said the Free National Movement is being used by others as it continues to protest the operations at the Bank of the Bahamas. Prime Minister Perry Christie suggested on Wednesday, as he spoke to reporters at the House of Assembly, that the Free National Movement has an ulterior motive in raising alarm about the Bank of the Bahamas. Later, during a point of order in the House of Assembly, Mr. Christie asked, quote, "Is the F&M trying to force the sale of the Bank of the Bahamas to someone who wants to buy it? Name who they want to do it for," end quote. He also revealed in Parliament that Bahamas Resolve, a government-owned company established to go after $100 million of BOB's transferred toxic commercial loans, was already reaping millions of dollars. Mr. Christie was reacting to the opposition's demonstration on Wednesday morning outside the bank's Shirley Street location amid the party's expressed concern about the bank's management team. Mr. Christie said the opposition's attempts to undermine BOB were misguided. A dormitory at the Bahamas Agricultural and Marine Sciences Institute, BAMSI, was completely destroyed by fire on Thursday afternoon. Officials said they had not ruled out arson as a cause of the blaze. Fire Chief Walter Evans led a team from Nassau to Andros on Thursday night to investigate the blaze that started sometime after 6 p.m. at a male dormitory. He confirmed that officers and volunteers were still working to out the blaze at around 11 p.m. Mr. Evans said that the scale of the fire had been significantly reduced when he arrived to the island, adding that his team had begun investigations. Courses at BAMSI began this week, according to an administrative clerk who confirmed that the school had enrolled an additional 10 students in the new term. Bahamas Electricity Corporation Chairman Leslie Miller said he did not sign a contract without the board's approval, despite the union's claims to the contrary. Bahamas Electrical Workers Union President Paul Maynard alleged on Thursday that BEC Chairman Leslie Miller signed an engine maintenance contract without board approval and was a consultant for the firm in question. The allegations are contained in a letter Mr. Maynard sent to Labor and National Insurance Minister Shane Gibson on Tuesday. In the letter, Mr. Maynard also alleged that Mr. Miller is using the controversial issue of overtime pay as a smokescreen for the unethical things that Mr. Maynard claims Mr. Miller is doing at BEC. When contacted about the claims in the letter, Mr. Miller denied the allegations. He stressed that he did not sign a contract without board approval and is not a consultant for the company in question. He said he would instruct his lawyer to take legal action against Mr. Maynard. He told the Tribune he had no knowledge of the claims and asked to see a copy of the letter before he would respond. After receiving the letter, he said, quote, "I'm sending this to my lawyer, Mr. Anthony McKinney, to take action against Maynard for these scurrilous accusations sent to Mr. Gibson," end quote. Mr. Maynard said the union is aware that Mr. Miller recently signed a contract with Burmeister and Wayne Scandinavian Contractor to maintain BEC's engines without the board's approval or knowledge. This marks the latest conflict in the pair's long-running feud over matters related to BEC. Want to get in on the discussion? Well, here's how you can. Just log on to our website at www.tribune242.com. Like us on Facebook, the Tribune News Network. Send us a tweet at Tribune242 or subscribe to our YouTube page, Tribune242.